Ladies and gentlemen, we have one more speaker this evening. And to introduce him, I would like to ask my dear friend, Ailish Campbell, of the Canadian Council of Chief Executives, to come to the podium. Ailish. Over to you.
Thanks. So I don't know how the rest of you feel, but whatever Brian Lee Crowley is drinking tonight, I want some of it. I think it's that fantastic beer that you've brought across the border. Brian, you're an inspiration. The work of the Institute of the last 5 years has provided thought leadership, it's provided excitement in Ottawa, and you've pushed the envelope. So please do join me in just giving a very short thank you to Brian and his team. We're very privileged in Canada to have intellectuals and thought leaders like Brian who are fearless in their advice. We've heard from the panel tonight cherry-picking some of their favorite moments, and I did pick mine, and I was pleased to hear Michael Bliss speak about it. And of course, that is Sir John A.'s attitude towards women. He said that not only were women deserving of the vote, but it was inevitable that they would receive it. So if you'll allow me, one of his greatest achievements was recognizing this far earlier than his male peers. And one of his greatest failings was that, in fact, he tabled legislation to give women the vote, but he, in fact, withdrew it when he knew that defeat was certain. And he admonished Parliament at the time, saying that they were behind history. As we think about the legacy of Sir John A., I would say one of the gifts he gave us was, of course, the British North American Act, but it wasn't until, I would argue, the Persons case that British North American Act was perfected, if you'll allow me. Andrew Coyne also spoke tonight about one of my favorite Sir John A. quotes, and it's very simple. Adhere to the Union. We are a great country. And to speak about that, it turns out that tonight is not only a dinner party, it's also a seance. And I'd like to invite the shade of the great man himself to address us, Sir John A. Macdonald.
It's a great pleasure to be here. I think I'll use this modern speaking trumpet to speak to you. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's an honor to be roasted by a panel, none of whom were alive during my life. It's been astounding to come down and hear everything that's spoken about me, and I assure you I have not had a drop in over a century. It's not many of us up in the greater House of Commons in the sky who get asked to come back to a dinner about their birthday. I mean, it's very rare that we get these visits down south. And we have renamed heaven the Greater House of Commons in the sky. It was the first bill that I introduced when I got there. I used the ruthless politics that I learned here in Canada, and I introduced the bill that we should change the name of heaven and hell to the Greater House of Commons in the sky. And of course, there was resistance. Mainly from the medieval folks who felt they should hang on to the normal nomenclatures of heaven and hell. But I pointed out that the bill would actually take care of both sides of the question, because heaven and hell in the Greater House of Commons just depends which side of the house that you sit on. And then you can change sides quite regularly, which I gather they still do. So it passed, enormous majority, and the heavenly host then sang their thing, and we've now got a Greater House of Commons committee working on the Bible. We're going to change that. We're going to bring that up to date. Quite a bit of resistance. I smell like a number of politicians in the room, and that's good. There's always politicians in the air wherever I go. A definite political air here in Ottawa, which is absolutely, and I cannot get over the lack of smoke. I mean, it may seem odd to you, but I was walking here tonight to this magnificent building, and of course, there's smoke from political fires. The political fires have put up smoke to the end of time, but I walked down here and there's no smoke from the coal grates. There's no smoke from the pulp operations down the river. And if this room, in my time, this room would have been a haze of cigar and pipe smoke, a haze of obfuscation. And coming through, I'm taken with the statuary has gone up to me, and this wonderful new statuary going up in Kingston. That's wonderful. But what's the banner? You can just see it from here on top of the center block. Is that the flag that you were talking about? What have you people been up to? Where's your sense of history? In fact, a delegation came up to the Greater House of Commons a couple of decades ago, and they wanted to make me an Order of Canada. And I replied, I thought I was the Order of Canada. And Laurier, fine gentleman, gave a very fine eulogy, as Mr. Bryan I was telling you about. And as to his statesmanship, he says, written in the history of Canada, the life of Sir John Macdonald from the date he entered Parliament is the history of Canada. And in my humble opinion, if I offer a few bon mots, as it were, governing is not so much about powers, it's about stewardship. I mean, becoming a government does not necessarily mean that you inherit the ownership of a nation for 4 years. It's really about steering a nation by holding the reins of power with trust. A trust given to you by all of the electorate, invested in you, invested in the greatest Canadian institution that there is, the House of Commons, invested through the ballot box. And I sense that all of us in this room, we share a broad, inclusive patriotism, a devotion to the welfare of Canada, a devotion to the advancement of Canada, and a devotion to the glory of Canada. Thank you very much. I'll see you in another 100 years. Take care. You'll be dead. We'll see you up there.